He was captured and tortured, tragically executed by firing squad commanded by Belgian officers, and later his body was dissolved in acid to hide all evidence of his death. This is the sad story of Patrice Lumumba, the first Prime Minister of Democratic Republic of Congo, a man who stood for a unified Congo. Just like other African leaders then, he strongly supported the liberation of colonial territories in Africa. In 1950s, groups emerged with a pro-independence determination for a free and sovereign Congo. One of these groups was the Congolese National Movement (MNC), in which Lumumba became the leader due to his strong position on the evils of colonialism and equally his ability to speak many African languages. Patrice Lumumba grew to become a powerful figure in Congo's struggle for independence and the anti-colonial movements in Africa. His unwillingness to allow outside forces to take over leadership of Congo created tension as foreign powers like Belgium, US, and Europe in general took sides with the opposition leaders. This brought Congo to a total moment of disorder and plunder. After many protests and the rising tension of decolonization, in January 1960, a roundtable conference was held in Brussels. At this conference, the Congolese people strongly rejected the guidelines drawn by the Belgian government, and later, an agreement was made for a national election to be held. After the election, Lumumba was elected the first Prime Minister of Congo, while Joseph Kasavubu was appointed the first president of the newly independent state.
Combattants de l'indépendance, aujourd'hui victorieux, je vous salue au nom du gouvernement congolais.
The country became officially independent on 30th of June 1960 and later changing its name to the Democratic Republic of Congo. However, the independence immediately triggered major difficulties, which Lumumba was unable to stop. At this time, there was a widespread disturbance within the country, mainly in mineral-rich areas of Congo. Areas like the province of Katanga, which was at that time separated from Congo with the support of Belgian government. The Katanga region was heart of country's mining wealth, where large-scale industrial mining had started in the early 20th century, mainly through the system of colonial companies which were closely aligned with the Belgian states. During this time, the revolt and breakaway of Katanga grew stronger with the mutiny of the military, supported by the US and Belgium. As a strategic ally to Belgium, the US maintained a close interest in Congo's affairs, especially in the mining of uranium. Lumumba's determination to use Congo's natural resources for the benefit of the people meant he was immediately seen as a threat to Western interests, which led them to use all possible strategies to remove him. After the splitting uprising in Katanga was supported by US and Belgium, Lumumba demanded before the UN the right of sovereignty and called for immediate expulsion of Belgian troops. However, the UN ignored the request and Lumumba sought the support of the Soviet Union, which for many was a defining point in Congo's crisis. However, in September 1960, just 3 months after independence, President Kasavubu announced the dismissal of Patrice Lumumba as Prime Minister, but the legalities of the removal were immediately opposed by Lumumba. As a result of the tension, there was now 2 groups claiming to be legal central governments. At this point, power was seized after Congolese military headed by Colonel Joseph Mobutu Seseko launched a coup with backing from CIA and Belgium. He announced that the army is taking over power and politicians from both sides will be neutralized. Colonel Mobutu thereafter reached a working agreement with Kasavubu. Later, Patrice Lumumba was being placed under house arrest, guarded not only by Mobutu's force, but by the UN, which provided him with protection. After General Assembly decided to recognize Kasavubu's government, Lumumba escaped from his home confinement and intended to travel to Stanleyville, where his supporters had control. However, he was caught by Mobutu's force and arrested. He was initially held at a military camp in Mbaza, Ngungu, but concerns that the soldiers were so sympathetic to him led to Belgian, Congolese and Katangan authorities to arrange for his transfer to a different location that they think will be more secure. On January 17, 1961, Lumumba and his two associates, Joseph Okito and Maurice Mpolo, were handed to the separatist regime in Katanga and his Belgian advisors. During the flight to Katanga, Lumumba and his associates were severely beaten by soldiers escorting them, and when they equally landed, they were still beaten again. Later on that same day, Lumumba, Okito and Mpolo were executed by firing squad under Belgian officers' command. Although their bodies were initially thrown into shallow graves, but later Lumumba's body was dug up under the direction of Belgian officers, hacked into pieces and dissolved in acid. Without any physical burial, a gold-capped tooth is all that remains of Lumumba. However, in addition to the atrocity, the Katangan government withheld official announcement of his death until some weeks later, and then claimed that Lumumba had escaped from their custody and was being discovered by villagers who killed him. This announcement was quickly disputed by the people of Congo and Africa at large. Lumumba's death caused a scandal throughout Africa and beyond, and in honor to the death, even his enemies proclaimed him a national hero.